Okay, well, thank you very much, UU. It's good to see the UUs here, official. Anyway, I want to start with this. Any similarity of this presentation to a sermon is purely coincidental. But I went to Barcelona here in February. I had an operation about 5 weeks ago for cancer, and can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
And I was sort of not knowing what I was doing. I didn't know how to handle my life. It was a new experience for me. And so what I found, from what always works for me if I want to get revitalized, is I travel. I love it. Nothing like it. So where I went was to Barcelona. Barcelona is right along the coast here. I can't see it exactly, but about here. In this whole area, Barcelona is the capital of Catalonia. And this area right here is the area of Catalonia, one of the most interesting places. Barcelona, of course, is one of the big three. If you're going to Europe, the places to go, you've got to go to London, Paris, and Barcelona. And I find, let me see if I can work this. Well, first of all, let me talk about the importance of travel. Culture thrives on knowledge. To me, it's more important to travel than about anything. I think there's someone, Mark Twain or someone, who said, travel is even more important than education, because what it does is it broadens your perspective. I've traveled, I think something like 78 countries or so, and done a... What is that? Does that mean?
Just turn it down a little bit.
You know, you're right. That's what the problem is. I'm logistically hung up here. Okay, good. Okay. Well, I've traveled hundreds of times, about 75 countries, I think. And each time I always conclude that America is just a great place to live. But we tend to have an arrogance about our importance in the world. And I think going any place, it kind of gives you a broader look at yourselves and how you fit in the world. Democracy is fine, but it's not necessarily the end-all for all of the countries. So what I'm going to talk about today is my trip to Barcelona. And being the capital of Catalonia, Catalonia is one of the most interesting places that in Europe today, I think. The reason being, Catalonia has always been kind of a separate place, and even though it's part of Spain, it is, I'm having a hard time this morning, excuse me.
You got some water.
I'll go get some.
He's got
No,
water.
it's not that, I'm just having a little trouble. Well, okay, Barcelona is one of the most unique places in the world, and the reason is, it is one of the only autonomous places. Even though it's part of Spain, it has its own nationality. So Catalonia, which was started by the Carthaginians way back, excuse me. Well, pardon me, I don't know what's the matter. I'm having a little trouble today.
Jackie, would it be easier if you sat down?
I don't know, I'm just having a little trouble I can't seem to get my thoughts
Can you
together.
see all right, JP?
Yeah, everything's fine, I'm just, I'm having a case of nerves. What's that? Go ahead, okay. Well, anyhow, Barcelona
What?
is probably the cleanest, safest, one of the nicest cities that I've seen in all of Europe. Now, why did I pick Barcelona? Well, the culture and the history is just incredible. I'm going to talk just very briefly about history. But then the real reason is that I got a cheap airfare. I'm able to get a fare to leave from Evansville, go to Barcelona for $900. And I'm saying I can't stay home when places like that. And plus I'd never been there, so I wanted to see it. And then of course, anytime I say, you get to renew your perspective of the U.S., who we are and how we fit in the world. And plus it's just a great clean and congenial city. Just a brief history of Catalonia. Was established back in 550. The Greeks were there first, being along the coast. Then the Carthaginians, who were across the river, across the sea at least, over in Tunisia, they came over and conquered it. Then the Romans came along in 218. The Visigoths came in for 2.5 centuries. Then the Moors came in 718 and actually created problems for Barcelona, for Catalonia for many, many years. Finally, Wilfrid the Hairy, which is one of my favorite names. Wilfrid came along and he was able to consolidate Catalonia into the Andalusian area. So he was one of the first for the Albions. The Franks and the Muslims argued back and forth about who owned this area, but Wilfrid the Hairy brought it together. That continued until 1258. Then it changed again and came back. Finally, it's noted by 1391. Well, actually, what was happening in that area in all of Europe is around the 1300s, there was a lot of anti-Semitism that was occurring throughout Europe. And the reason is the Jewish people are very successful. They control finances. They're very diligent people. But what they would do then with their money is they would charge usury rates. And they ended up being controlling much of not only the church's money, but also the government's money. So beginning in about, this all came to a head. In 1391, they killed 4,000 Jews in various cities. They would knock them off at about 200-300 per city, but it ended up 4,000 Jews they killed. Then there was a rebellion in 1462. This went back and forth, but finally Castile and Aragon were united as an area in 1761. They then got their autonomy, complete autonomy from Spain in 1932. Spanish War happened with Franco, and he came in and tore things to hell. But finally, they brought things together. And in 2013, just 2 years ago, they became totally autonomous and were noted as a nationality, which was incredible. And I don't know of any other place in the world that they've done that this way. However, this past year, their Supreme Court in Spain said that was illegal. So I'm not quite sure where that stands. Well, there's just some pictures of Barcelona. This is, as I say, it's along the coast. 1.6 million people. This is the old area, the Roman area. They call it the very Gothic. And it's a beautiful place to see all the ruins and things there. Just talk shortly about the do's and don'ts for international travel. Today, with the internet, you can just do everything. The more you do on the internet in advance, the more prepared you are for the trip and the more fun you're going to have. I spent a lot of time, but I'm amazed at the things I missed. And only when I started to put this presentation together did I realize some of the places I meant to do that I never got to. But with any place, if you're traveling, any place, any airport in Europe, this applies to Europe only, but there's always walking distance to a train, and the trains are just a marvelous place to travel, a marvelous way to travel in Europe. And of course, they all connect them with the subways and the buses. So you can just get around in any city completely, simply, without any help from anyone. When I say avoid paranoia, there is some bit of, any place you go, you have to watch for people, pickpockets and so. But this is one of the safest places, I say, that I've seen. Rome, you have to guard everything in Rome with your life, but Barcelona does not seem to be the case. And I used a frontal pouch where I carried my passport and my money. Anything else valuable I put in the frontal pouch, rather than having a wallet or something, even a purse. People could come along in certain cities and tear those off and rob you. So, but you can avoid paranoia and then be prepared to walk. Anytime internationally, be prepared to walk.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, in Barcelona, some of the do's, to me, the best way to start is when you go to a city. In the old days, I used to run around the city. I'd come in after a long flight, and the best thing to do is go running and find out the places I then want to visit. I don't have the strength to do that anymore. So I take the city bus tour. And then in the metro, they have something called a 10-station pass, and it's very cheap. It ends up being about $1 per trip. And I'm saying be adventurous, use the train. And of course, to me, having an iPad or a GPS, it's just vital. It was just great to have. And of course, in Barcelona, the food is superb. Seafood is terrific, but they have something called tapas, which are various assortments of foods, and they have what called tapa bars. People in Barcelona seem to spend a lot of their time talking and eating and drinking. And so tapa bars is a great place to go. And then they have something called cava, which is their local wine, which is terrific. And there actually, if you want to, there's a group that you can go and eat with families. You can go sign up and eat with families, which is a wonderful way to meet the people.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Some don'ts, of course, there's always helpful strangers. I called one here, but just there, I missed my ride to the hotel and ended up taking the train in to go to the hotel. But I met a helpful stranger. He was from Ireland, and he started talking to me that I could talk English and no one could talk English. But it only cost me $20, okay? But this happens anyway. But of course, I'm the don't. You must show respect for other countries. My early days of traveling, it was amazing the number of Americans, particularly I remember women, but I'm sure it's everybody, but ugly Americans who would be looking for a place and the person couldn't speak English, and they would start shouting at the person because they couldn't speak English. It's their country. So we have to show respect for them. And do not be afraid to interact. It's terrific, good way to, you can ask people in the street, and it's really a nice way of getting a feel for how they respond to you. And I say do not keep to your normal schedule. In Barcelona, if you're not up at 3 o'clock, you're missing what's going on in the world, so it's good to change. And tipping, they do not require, they pay their waiters a decent wage. If you want to leave them, say €1, which is $1.3, you want to leave them €1 fine, but they don't expect any 10 or 20% that we do over here. Very refreshing to me. Well, okay, get oriented first. Here's the buses. They are the typical bus that they have. And then the metro map. As I say, they're wonderful. Now the problem is they'll take you to a certain station, and if you don't know where you're trying to go, you've got to relate then your map to where the place is on the metro. But I find just a correlation to it. It took me 3 or 4 days to get this straight, but once I did, it was so convenient to get around. And the metros are beautiful, they're modern. And like I say, the cleanliness blew me away, this place. Now, why did I stay in hostels? Here's two reasons right here. Two young ladies I met. The young lady on the left was from Colorado. She's a student and had dropped out of college, so she decided to stay and look around Europe and see what it was like. Very interesting lady. And this young lady here was a South Korean. And I met her in a top of bar. Delightful young lady. Now here's the hostel that I stayed in, and these, I don't know if you've stayed in a hostel any place, but to me they're magnificent because compared to like staying in a hotel you're in your room. So what do? You go down the lobby, no one talks to you, so you go to the bar and you spend your time there. In hostels, you get a terrific interaction. This image on the left, that's served as the breakfast nook. So they serve you free breakfast there, all the coffee you want and so forth. And also at night, then this was a meeting area. They had a TV there. And we'd get in and play games, people would do music. It was a lot of fun. This is just can you see that picture all right?
Yes.
Okay. That's the outside deck. And so when the sun was out, it's a beautiful place to be. Now, where you stayed, I talked about the trip before. How to put this?
Ireland?
I slept with I slept with a lady from Australia. Actually, these are the bunks here. And like you can stay in a bunk room with 8 people or 4 people, or then there are private ones. But here, I stayed with 3 South Korean ladies, and they were delightful. And what's nice, everybody's comfortable, you know? No one seemed intimidated by any of this going on. Here's the little nook they had, and they served beer. You could get beer there, Cokes, or drinks, a couple of drinks. What do you call, not pina coladas. I've forgotten what they're called. Now here, dining is incredible here in this city. This is one of the fish dishes. All over Barcelona. Here's the beers. You gotta have beers, and tapas are here. This is one of the top of bars. You see a load of people. This is along the street. These places, they're everywhere in Barcelona. Some of the kids who stayed there at the hostels, they were able to bring in food and fix their own meals there, so they didn't have to spend any money at all. And then here's one of the restaurants I ate in. It was terrific. Just some pictures from a quick tour. Here's the bus. Was able to take pictures from the top of the bus. And this is the Arc de Triomphe of Barcelona. Here's some city glimpses. There's this cable car that ran from down in the Port Zil, it's called, down at the dock. It ran all the way up to a mountain that's called the Mountain of the Jews, Mount Jew-I-C, but Mountain of the Jews. And over here on the left, that's just, well, at the top is a park, one of the parks, and this is one of the museums. Museums and sighting, I decided I liked their picture so much I would repeat it. But this is a museum of Catalonian art, and it is mainly loaded with a bunch of images of religious art. Here's a picture of the metro. This is a view of the city. A thing you do in Barcelona, and in fact all the European towns, is there's always a main street where you go ramble, and this was called Rambla Street, which I thought was perfect. And as you can see here, restaurants, places to get a beer, every place here. And here's the Museum of Art that I talked about. I went there, and they were like, if you can see on the left, that's very steep. They're about, it seemed like about 1,000 steps to get up to where the museum was. I got there and it was Monday, so it was closed. So I ended up not going there. But then I cheated and looked on the internet, and here are some pictures from inside the museum. And as I say, the Romanesque church art was mainly what it has.
Wow.
This is a place, let me speak just a little bit about Antoni Gaudí. Gaudí, they pronounce it Gaudí. I thought this stuff myself was Gaudí, but people disagree with me.
That's where it came from, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Hang on just a minute.
That's pretty over the top.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Well, he is, Gaudí was, he lived in the late 18th century and actually was killed in Barcelona when he got hit by a tram. And this Sagrada Familia was a art piece that was started in 1884. It's still not completed today. It got stopped when Gaudí got killed, but in the 1920s. It's still been picked up and it's being worked on today. Here you can see some of the old sections of it. And here's the newer sections that they're doing. And I think they got about another 50 years or so. Here's some of the construction shots. As you can see, still going on. Oh, they asked Gaudí, they asked why it was taking so long, and he said, what's religious? And he said, my client is in no hurry, which I thought interesting response. Okay, oh, this is another Gaudí building. It's called the Casa Batlló, and I found this particularly interesting inside is, I lost my place. Yeah. These are a series of, they call them catenary. There's about 60 of these. It's a very unusual looking place, and none of the floors in here are load bearing. It's designed, and Gaudí was very into nature and religion. And in fact, he was called God's architect for that reason. And he is being considered by the church for beatification. That's going on right now, the Catholic Church. Here's one of the, inside the museum, the Battle Majesty. These are many, many wooden carvings that were done back particularly in 12th and 13th century. Now here's another of the Gaudí buildings,
Yeah,
and this one really is Gaudí, I think.
It was like
This
a giant
one,
cake.
Yes.
the Pridre, it's called Casa Mia La Pridria, however you pronounce that. It actually stands for the
La
quarry.
Pridera.
What?
La Pridera.
Thank you. I'll never remember that. But that stands for the quarry. Is what.
Is it, what's in it?
What's in it? It's a
people live-
museum now.
Museum,
No,
okay.
no, it's a museum now.
It was originally a private residence, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah, and always Casa Batlló also were also private residences. I keep losing my notes here as part of the problem. It keeps going off. Okay. And this is a World Heritage Site, by the way. His influence is everywhere. He used tiles. They did a whole lot of ceramic tiles. They break them up and build that into the wall structure here. This is another of his another Park of Gil, it's called. Gil was a gentleman who had the idea that the aristocrats needed a place. They needed their own place. So he envisioned this area that he was going to put 50 different houses, 50 houses. They ended up building 2. because he ran out of money. It was a disaster, financial disaster. But he ended up making two, and he brought Gaudi in to do the interior of this, and the interior and exterior. Then just some of the parks. Here, just on the left, it shows one of the playgrounds for the kids. This was where the zoo was located. Here's one of the buildings, the Catalan building it's called, and now that, I'm not sure which is the hotel there, I never quite figured out, but there's actually a hotel that's turned into a hotel.
Is it really leaning like that?
Yes, it is, it's really, yeah.
It's bizarre.
It was, yeah, it was odd, I'm
Leaning
saying,
Tower
wondering
of
why they
Barcelona.
did
Yeah.
it that way, I don't know.
Looks like a beer can.
Yeah. This is an interesting structure of the Mercat, which is actually a flea market that runs all the time. And that ceiling part, I don't know if you tell, but that's a mirrored ceiling.
Oh, wow.
If you look on the internet, there's some beautiful shots of that.
Wow.
This is the theater there, where they still, it's used today for symphonies, and certain plays are done there. Again, the influence from Gaudi. While I was there, I went to the zoo. I hadn't been to the zoo in ages, and I got lost, so I decided to drop into the zoo. But it's an incredible zoo there. They put on a dolphin show that was typical, like what you'd see in any place in Florida. And these were some little, I don't know if they're anteaters or quite what they were, but they did have, this zoo was noted for having a white ape, and he's died, so they put a statue there, so all that's left now is a statue. But they did have some other apes there, and elephants that had all the normal things. Here are just some of the various sites. This is, on the lower one there is the Port Sail, loaded with rich boats.
Ooh.
More pictures of the architecture.
What is the building on the right?
This was a building, I've forgotten the name of it right now, but this was, they converted it, or they made it into an office building, which was wild. And it was supposed to be the most incredible building, most incredible penis-shaped building in the world. But no, actually, it turned out that there was a building very similar to it that was done first in London, so
Right.
it sort of lost its, but I've forgotten the name. I've got it, but I don't remember what it is. This is just a picture. I was walking along. This is one of the thoroughfares. And look how clean, I mean, it's just,
Clean,
marvelous place.
manicured,
yeah, it really is. Here's the beach.
zero surf.
Zero surf, yeah, there was that day, that's right. There's a whole lot of activity there on weekends, so it was amazing the amount of outside activities. Skin divers, windsurfing, the paddle boats, the surf, they were all there. It was really, it's a pretty active place. Here's something I found interesting. This is dedicated, this bandstand was dedicated to this transsexual, Sonia Zafra, who was brutally murdered on 6 October 1991. And this bandstand by a group of neo-Nazis for her gender identity. The city of Barcelona condemns this crime and rejects all attitudes and actions that violate the rights enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Wow.
All right, I like that. I thought that was really
Yes.
good.
Absolutely.
They had the Olympics here in 1992. This was pretty interesting, Summer Olympics, and the reason was that this was the first year the Russians had broken up. So the Soviet Union came with what they call a unified team, and they competed here. This was after Carter had pulled us out of the Olympics before, so this was our first Olympics back to compete, the U.S. to compete. This building here, which looks like a fish, has been turned into a casino now. This was one that was built for the Olympics. And this shrine here in the middle, that's the Olympic shrine for that year.
Oh,
And there are two of those. Let me just speak, about Carnival. Carnival or Mardi Gras. I picked this time of year to go because I had been to Carnival, well, I've been in Mobile, I'd gone to Mobile, Alabama for Mardi Gras, but I've been to Carnival, to Buenos Aires, and to Rio back when I was a young man. And so I was very interested to see what they're doing here. As it turned out, these were what it used to be like in Barcelona, but they've now totally just wiped it out. And basically now what it is just people dressing up and going out and ringing their buzzers, but it's gotten very calm. It was nothing like the carnival that I remembered. And here's another place you can go. Short train ride to get to a place called Montserrat. And this is a beautiful Catholic monastery here. I was going to go, and this never happens, but about once a year I got my Achilles acted up, and so I ended up canceling going there. But beautiful place. Bullfighting. I had been to bullfights before in Tijuana. I'd gone in Madrid to a bullfight. I'd gone to Portugal, to Lisbon. I got to see a bullfight there, which is a little bit different. And of course, Spain, you've got to go to bullfights. Well, it turns out in Barcelona, this sign here, what that indicates is that bullfighting was banned. They banned it 4 years ago because of cruelty to animals.
Yes, right.
Good.
Banned. They still do it in Madrid.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, it's my first one made me sick just watching it. It was really, but anyhow, the art of it, the art is absolutely majestic.
Yes.
To see a matador perform, I gotta say I was very impressed with the artistry of what that person's able to do. And now look at all those poor unemployed matadors.
What are they gonna do now?
And flamenco, of course you gotta do flamenco. I'd done flamenco in Madrid before, and I ended up not going to one of the flamenco places, but they put on a show. You get dinner and the show for about 60, 70 bucks, so it's kind of nice thing.
Ooh.
Another thing is that Barcelona, well, all of Spain is noted for, is but particularly Catalonia, the Sardana dance. And this dance that they do, and I didn't see this, I was surprised. I expected to see this because it's quite a symbol of their independence, of Catalonia's independence. But I didn't see anyone actually doing it here. And the other thing are the castles. And they build big human, whatever you call those things, like the cheerleaders do. That's a big thing for the Spaniards. Now, this is my favorite part. The Dali, I went to Dali, Salvador Dali's hometown. This was my highlight. And if you would stand up, Emily, and show your t-shirt. That's Dali.
Nice.
Salvador Domingo Felipe Jacinto Dali. One of the early surrealists. He was a fan early of Cubist art of Picasso. Then he went off on his own. He's got a very grandiose and eccentric style, which I found especially appealing. And he worked in everything. He did sculpture, paintings, film, you name it. He was really, there he is. Love his looks.
He
Here's
looks
his
like
muse-
eccentric.
Yeah, he looks the part. Here on the left is the museum entrance. And down below, that's the little town of Figueroas, however you say it. But,
That's good.
okay. Oops, I'm missing a few pictures. Let me see if I can find those back.
Time was having a tough time that day.
Well, I've lost those. I had a whole much more Dali pictures, but apparently I didn't include them in here. And this is Dali's, probably his most important, or at least most noted painting. This is called Persistence of Memory. And what these are clocks that are melting. And here, one down on the left side, is there's ants running around
Oh.
on the clocks. People, and this figure, no one can quite decide whether that was a placenta or what it was, but and some said this was representation of Einstein's theory of relativity. And another idea was that this somehow related to dream time, that there's a the relationship of time and motion that we try to represent. Unfortunately, oh here, okay, here they are. Here's some more pictures. This is a museum entry, and he did stuff like this. The car here with the figure, with the big busted woman on top. And this was, you know, you can look at these and study them and try to decide what the meaning is. They're quite interesting. More pictures of the museum. I particularly like this one. I thought this was amazing. That's not a great shot of it, but that's... And here a picture on the left is pictures waiting, or people waiting to go in the museum. And here he is. I love this one with the little starfish. He's examining the world through his eyes. And of course Shirley Temple here on top of some sort of animal. But that's it. There you have it. I don't know what happened to get stumbled. I couldn't get to my notes, but I'm sorry for the stumbling. But
Oh,
anyhow.
thank you.
Okay.
You did a great job.
Well,
Can I ask a couple questions?
please.
I noticed that there's a lot of Catholic art, and did you notice any like mosques or temples of other
You know,
religions?
I didn't see, I was surprised.
Really?
I did not see a single mosque. I did not see a single Muslim woman, which amazed me. And I was out on like Saturday of the weekend. I mean, it is flooded with people. But surprisingly, I did not see that.
How about electronics? Because you know, everywhere you go here, everybody's got a phone doing something on
Oh,
it.
yeah, yes.
Is
Oh,
that
yes.
the same way
Oh,
over there?
Absolutely. And Wi-Fi is every place. So these, you know, your phone or these, they're just wonderful. So you get to do everything by that. Yeah, it's very modern, clean, safe. I was knocked out with the city. Quite nice.
Did you take all the photographs with your phone?
Yes, I did with this, and then I did pull off a couple of, I cheated on a couple I pulled from the internet, but basically I took from my thing. Yes, sir.
I had the fortune to go to Barcelona a few years ago, and I would recommend if any of you guys ever have the opportunity, there's lots of cruises that leave from Barcelona.
True, I did not do that
And so
either.
you could go, stay a few days in Barcelona, see the Mediterranean, come back, stay a few days in Barcelona and be on your way.
Yeah,
Another thing, that park you showed, Park
Yes.
Well,
yes,
we spent like darn near a whole day there.
absolutely.
It would be like if Walt Disney took a whole bunch of LSD and made a park for adults.
Yeah,
And
right.
it really is amazing. And
What's the name of the park?
Park
Well,
Well,
G-U-E-L-L.
it's towards the top of the hill. You got to work a little
Right.
bit to get there, but it's amazing.
Yeah,
And then the other thing I remember, the big museum there, on the back side of it are a bunch of fountains.
Catalonia Museum
Yeah.
or, oh yes, on the
There's one
back
called
side,
the
yes,
Steps.
yes.
And
Yeah.
if you go at night, they set it to music with lights. And so we went for a couple hours, and there's guys selling beer on the street, and there's fountains, and there's music, and there's all these lights, and it was really something else.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And
I
I
didn't
can't
know
speak
that.
highly enough of Barcelona.
Isn't that a wonderful
Oh, it's
city?
fantastic.
I was knocked out. I just thought it was quite impressive, yes.
I'm glad you showed that because I've been to Barcelona 3 times, but I saw nothing of it because we were going to Ibiza, which is one of the Balearic Islands. And so we were driving down from Brussels, like dervishes, all the
Yeah.
way down through France, through Spain to the
Yep.
coast.
Yep.
And then they, in those days, they didn't have roll-on, roll-off, which probably don't mean anything to you people, but the roll-on, roll-off is ferries that you just drive on and drive off.
Yeah, okay.
And so I didn't see much of Barcelona except, you know, rushing through the city to make it to the boat on time.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. And actually, is Laura here? Did you?
Yes.
She's with
Oh,
the
okay.
children.
Well, Laura has spent some time there. She went with her mother, and they went down the coast, down to a place called Villanova, which was, and she loved it there, so it's terrific, yes.
JP, describe some of the food you ate, the good food.
Well, I love the seafood. I kept getting seafood, and then the tapas, one I particularly liked was anchovies and peppers and olives. It was just really nice. They had some potato ones that, the particular ones I had, I didn't care for. But they're all kind of different dishes. I could have spent hundreds of dollars just eating.
What about breakfast? What would a typical breakfast be?
There was typical orange juice and cereals and breads.
Continental.
Yeah, but yes, continental breakfast is.
No baked beans, huh?
No, they don't. Right, not like England. That's right.
No barbecue
Yes.
mutton.
You mentioned in the 1400s, I believe, they killed 4,000 Jews.
Yeah.
Queen Isabella used the art and gold and so forth from them to finance Columbus' trip.
Oh my God.
Okay. And of course she was known as the master of the Spanish Inquisition.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So she used it to clean up all of Andalusia, that area. So,
Yikes.
Wow.
It's
but
all
I hadn't
okay.
realized she was actually using that money. But she is a very clever lady.
It's all okay if you do it for God.
Right. Yeah. So, yes.
I took some Spanish in school, and I think I told you earlier, I remember a few words, but one thing that my Spanish teacher impressed upon me and that I remember was that in America we're all dedicated about time. Everything is time driven. I have to start this at a certain time, finish at a certain time. You work certain hours, stores are open certain hours. And she said that in Spain, things weren't necessarily that way. It was a more relaxed environment. You know, if you're supposed to start at 8
Like
and you
South
wander in at
America was
8:30,
saying.
you're all right. And that is it like
Yeah,
that?
it's, well, I didn't get I know South America was exactly like that.
Okay.
Every place in South America was exactly that
Okay.
way. This had gotten, it's so much more modern than it was back when I
Okay.
was
Okay.
there before. Yes, Tom?
About the relaxed living there, that actually caused them a lot of trouble lately because they have a huge unemployment rate, and that's because they don't show up, they don't like to work basically, they like to enjoy where they live, and I mean, it's different from the north to the south, but basically they like to live a little relaxed, and
Yes,
the
yeah.
youth unemployment rate is at 55%, which is really crazy, and that's usually where the pocket picking comes from. It's usually like people
Yeah.
in around my age who came maybe from college and don't get a job and they're desperate. So in the metro, you really have to watch your pockets. Whenever I went there in 2011, like 50% of my classmates lost a wallet at least.
Oh
And their shorts
Yeah.
are like cut off and at the bottom of the pocket. You don't even realize you're
That's
being
true,
robbed.
yeah.
Wow.
They're really good at it.
Dealing with real professionals, huh?
Yeah, they're really good at it. I mean,
Yeah.
because that's like the last resort. They don't have anything else to lose. Like they.
Barcelona, interestingly, has a much lower, they're thriving, that's a very thriving place compared to
The rest of
the
Spain.
Basque areas, for example, where employment today is 50% or so.
What part was that you was talking about?
Oh, I stayed in Barcelona, but the youth unemployment in the north
In
is
the-
worse than in the south.
Yeah,
But
the
there's still
Basque,
some
the Basque
unemployment
area
there.
there, that area.
Basque area is trying to also get their independence still, aren't they?
Oh, are they? I didn't know
Yes,
that.
yeah, oh yeah, they're fighting hard.
That was amazing,
Part of
though.
Basque is in Spain, part of it is in France.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's part of with Catalonia being on
As
the
well.
border, they kind of switched allegiances.
Yes.
And I've read a lot of that history since being back, and wiped out the Aragons and the French, the Frank War and so forth, the Reapers War, and they kept going back and forth. They couldn't decide who they were with, or whoever's in control couldn't decide who they were with.
I want to thank you for bringing out the point of that travel gives you a different perspective and understanding of a culture. You know, we experience that just in our own society. You never meet anybody who's different from you, and so you don't understand them, and it helps.
Yes.
That helps foster an environment of prejudice and misunderstanding and
Yes.
problems. So I really appreciate you bringing
Very
out.
well, you stated it very
Bringing
clearly.
out the
Thank you.
importance
Thank you for
of that.
doing that. Okay. Yes, one last-
87% of college kids now are getting this semester abroad, and I think that's gonna just change the world.
Absolutely.
Oh, I do too. There's nothing
That's
like it
so,
for
I mean,
the
gosh,
young.
we couldn't imagine that, you know, when I was in college, that you might get a semester abroad, and it doesn't even cost extra, it's part of your school. And what a wonderful thing.
Yes,
That'd be awesome.
Here, here.
So-
Thank you very much.
Thank you, JP.
Thank you. Thank you.